Welcome to Score One Talks. Today's topic is persecution of Christians in Pakistan. I'm glad to have Greg Musselman today with us. Welcome to today's show.
Oh, nice to be back. Always appreciate being with you and your team here at Square One World Media.
Thank you. Yeah, your last name, we talk Musselman. It's basically means kind of a Muslim man, yeah?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, when I first, and I know we're talking about Pakistan, so in the Urdu language, I was speaking at a church way up in the northern part of the country, and they introduced me, Pastor Greg Musselman from Canada, and there was kind of a little bit of laughter, and I didn't really know what they were thinking about. When I was a kid, I used to get this, "Hey, muscle man, show me your muscles," that kind of thing. So, but then I found out afterwards, and when you say Muslim, it sounds very like Musselman.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Then I found out later, in many languages, whether it's Arabic or Dutch or German, Spanish, the name sounds like Muslim. And I would sometimes joke around and say that, if I'm ever captured by the Taliban, or somewhere,
you can say that I'm Musselman.
Musselman.
Yeah.
Of course, that might be, a little bit on the gray area there.
Anyway.
But it's interesting even when you think about names, because as you know from many parts of the world, you're given a name that actually means something. I was named Gregory after an actor many years ago named Gregory Peck. And my middle name is Dean. James Dean was also a famous actor. Yeah. But then I come to find out that Gregory actually means like watchman. And I think, well, in the Christian context, as a pastor and as a Christian leader, it kind of fits there.
Yes. Today we're going to talk about persecution of Christians in Pakistan. I would like to give you a little bit information about that country. I lived in Pakistan, in Peshawar and Islamabad. God opened my heart in Islamabad, Pakistan in 1999. Islamabad literally means build Islam.
Right, yeah.
But God had a different plan, and people like me, we believed in Jesus in Islamabad, Pakistan. And of course, Pakistan is located in South Asia, and a capital called Islamabad. Population is 240 million people, and 37% of people, they live in the cities. Here is again interesting fact that population under 15 years old are 35%.
Yeah, high.
35%. Official language is English is the official government language. Government language is English in Pakistan, but Urdu is the national language and becoming widely understood by most Pakistanis. Urdu is very popular there. And Pakistan has 77 different languages. Also, literacy rate is 58%. Life expectancy is 66. And 2.5% are Christians. From 240 million people, only 2.5%. It's around 5 million kind of, or 6 million Christians. It's some of them Catholics and also Anglican, and also something they call Church of Pakistan nowadays. 0.6% evangelical, and the largest religion are Muslim. Sunni is the majority. They have some Shias as well there. And Pakistan has 394 people groups. 394 people groups, and persecution ranking for this year is 7th in the world. My first question, when last time you visited Pakistan? Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's been several years now. Prior to COVID, I was there, and I was actually teaching the theology of persecution and of discipleship, which we've talked about in a previous program. And while I was there, I did a number of interviews with those that had come.
Where in Pakistan you were?
I was in probably shouldn't say. I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just because of
the sensitivity.
Yeah,
yes.
I was going to say it. It's probably not.
But anyway, yes.
We have to be careful, of course.
Right, yes.
We don't want to put our brothers and sisters in any further harm. I mean, that's one of the challenges, even being in media. You want to tell the stories, but you don't want to put people in harm. And there's many of the stories, not only in Pakistan, other parts of the world, they're so powerful, but there's such security issue. And again, we don't want to get anybody in trouble. But
they always say, Jesus said, be wise as a snake and be harmless as dove.
Yeah. And we have to be. And,
Yes,
and
yes.
in a lot of the cases with those that we had to hide their identity, it wasn't that they themselves were fearful. They're worried about their families or the opportunity that they would then not have to be able to go into some of these very hostile areas if it's known on Facebook or Instagram or social media through the internet or even through the videos that I do, because it's not like they're just, we do stories and they're not just contained in Canada anymore as it used to be or in churches, but literally goes all around the world. And so we have to be careful. So I was there doing interviews and, hearing what God was doing, meeting those that had come from Muslim backgrounds, and they're, very excited about Jesus. And again, the ones we met at the Bible school, they wanted to go back into some of these very hostile areas. In fact, there's one of the fellas that I interviewed years ago. We've been Facebook friends for many years, and I've helped him out occasionally, but he's going into so many of these very hostile areas and bringing people to Jesus. And so it's amazing what God is doing in the midst of persecution. And as you mentioned, those numbers can be pretty discouraging, 0.06 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
a number of evangelicals, and 2.5% or less of the population of that huge country are actually Christians, at least by identity. So it's a major challenge, but yet in the middle of all the challenges and economic and social issues, and of course the persecution and the Taliban and Islamic terrorist groups and all that, people are coming to know Jesus. And I've met many that have, had the dreams and visions, and
Yeah.
that's how they made their commitment to the Lord.
What are the main reasons that Christians get arrested or persecuted in Pakistan?
Well, you may know they have the
Blasphemy law.
law, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that is used against Christians. And the sad part is, and I was just reading a story, just prior to coming onto this interview, a young 22-year-old man, he's been accused of blasphemy, and apparently, he's been printing material and pictures of Muhammad and all these kinds of things. It's not true, at least as far as we can tell. And even if it was, does that warrant a death penalty? But
Yeah.
he's now facing.
If you could, before you go further, if you could a little bit explain about this blasphemy law. I know, but for our viewers.
Yeah, well, originally, when Pakistan was part of India, they have the blasphemy laws, and that's to protect all religions. But as an Islamic country in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan,
1947 they became.
1947. So these things, and,
Yes.
and so these laws are to protect people of different religions, but then under an Islamic government, it's used to protect Muslims. And so what often will happen in the blasphemy laws is they'll say, well, they blaspheme Muhammad, they blaspheme the Quran, and so then and maybe they did say, even in telling somebody about Jesus, and you say, well, the Jesus Isa in the Quran is not the Jesus of the Bible, and so you're saying something negative against our prophet Isa.
And some of these instances, even they have an argument to neighbor,
Right.
And one neighbor, like a Muslim neighbor, accuses the Christian neighbor for blasphemy, something that he can make up.
Yeah,
things.
because he wants to maybe take over his business or his land,
yeah.
or maybe they had there's the famous case of Asia Bibi.
Yes.
And, she was out with Christian lady, and she's out with some, other Muslim women, and offered somebody a drink of water. Oh, no, you're an infidel. And then, again, we don't know exactly what happened. As far as we know, Asia Bibi now, who faced death penalty for many years, is actually living in Canada. But, she was on death row for many years. She was accused of blasphemy. Now, she may have said something. Well, my Jesus is the God of the Bible, and he's the only way, whatever she might have said.
That's right.
And we can have those.
There are some other Christians that now currently are in prison in Pakistan.
Many,
Yeah.
and are facing these death penalties.
Yeah.
And again, it may be totally false charges, or they may have said, again, so you got to be careful with social media, but they may have posted something about Christianity, and all of a sudden that is seen against Islam.
And sometimes happens even the government have released them, then their tribe, their family members, they kill them. If they find them. Yeah.
Well, they have to. In many cases, they have to escape. And even the accusation, as false as it may be, and it's been proven false, even in courts. In some of these cases have gone to the courts, and again, the judges, they're under pressure that if they don't find them guilty, they could be killed. And if they do find them innocent, the person being accused of, under the blasphemy law, they could be killed leaving court, or they go after their homes.
That's right.
Whatever. And so the families have to often leave the area, and these can be very false cases, or somebody wants to marry a Christian girl, and then they will accuse the family of blasphemy because, these things go on all the time.
Yeah. What about this forced marriages of Pakistani Christian girls to Muslim men? What are the long-term impacts when this happens?
Well, their childhood is stolen.
What about in numbers? How do you think?
Well, there's again, those that are tracking these kinds of things. I'm going to have a video in just a moment, a video report of a guy that I talked to named Asher John. Cross Connection it's a website. He's a journalist. Actually worked in newsrooms in Pakistan. He would be the only Christian there, but he documents the stories, puts them on to try to put pressure on the Pakistani government to at least look at these cases, because these girls can be taken literally from their neighborhoods, because, as you know, in Pakistan, Christians are treated as second-class citizens. They have the jobs working in the sewers, street sweepers. They have all the terrible jobs, so both parents have to work. And so, say you got a 14-year-old girl who's looking after her siblings. Sometimes she is seduced by a neighbor, or the neighbor just takes a liking to her. He's already married. He's tripled, in age, and will kidnap her, sexually assault her, get her to sign a document, and they'll claim that now they're married and she's converted to Islam. And then the police go, well, we can't do anything, even though that's illegal. She's underage, but that often they lie about her age in court. And all these things are terrible, but there's about 1,000 girls that we know of each year. Most of them are Christian, some are Hindu as well, in some cases even Muslims, but the majority would be Christians, and the family don't have opportunity even to get lawyers. But there are Christian organizations that are stepping up and helping, and that's part of what we do as well. The Voice of the Martyrs is to support some of these organizations.
Well, when we were living in Islamabad, the lowest caste, like Pakistan is very similar to India.
Yes,
it's caste-based kind of. The lowest caste, they call them jamadar, which means those who collect garbage, those who collect garbage from apartments, and those are mostly like 100% are Christians.
Yes.
But they are the sweet people, and they are very honest.
Yes.
One time, even my wife, she put in the garbage something valuable, and they found it, they brought it back. Oh. They are very honest people, hardworking, and at the same time, it's the lowest caste in Pakistan. Here is another, my colleague. They knew that I'm interviewing you today, and she's wrote me this question. It said, I would like to know why the girls are targeted this way, what the persecutors hope to achieve, what actually does happen, who suffers, who does God redeem a horrific situation? How?
Well, they are targeted because they are vulnerable. As I mentioned, the parents are not there to give supervision. It's not that they're not good parents. They're just trying to make a living to support the family, to be able to feed them. It's very difficult. Some of these girls don't have opportunity even to go to school. They have to look after their siblings. And so they are watched in a sense, or a neighbor much older.
Or they're in open area. Actually, they live in a very open area.
Yeah.
They don't have houses, or they don't,
No, so they're seen in, very attractive young girl, and then this guy goes, I want her, or he tries to maybe seduce her, and then they kidnap them, or some cases maybe the girl, to say they go freely their own will, I think would be exaggerated, because they have been manipulated in some cases. Here, we'll give you this and this, and then all of a sudden they're caught in this nightmare, and then they take these girls and then they sexually assault them, and then they forcibly convert them to Islam. We know that in Christianity, you cannot be forced. You make a decision to follow Jesus, free will. But in the mentality of some of these people, as long as you get them signed on a document, it's forged. They lie about the age. They say they're overage and they're not. And so then they manipulate them. Then they're in these, horrible situations. The family then go to police. The police sometimes won't do anything, or if there's pressure applied, and that's with my friend, that is doing this with, in media with Yasser John. And then as a result of that, there's sometimes the police will intervene. But then, even if they're rescued after 3 months, well, they've been violated many times, or it may go on for years, or some cases they're never rescued and they're living a literal nightmare.
It's kind of a modern slavery.
It is modern slavery, and it's abuse, and even in cases where the courts will rule in favor of the family, the girl's returned to her family, but then nothing is done against the perpetrator. Some cases that might happen, but the majority, at least the ones that we see, there's no justice.
Yeah. Well, when it started, last couple of years, or?
Well, I think we've been
How
hearing.
is now?
I think it's been going on for decades. But I think in light of better reporting, those that are actually investigating these stories, I think when the Shoaib Ebadi story came out, even though that wasn't a forced marriage situation, it was the blasphemy law that was being abused, to put this woman on death row. I think there all of a sudden became an awareness outside of Pakistan in a greater way that these things were going on, and there just has been more attention, I think, even on human trafficking in the broader sense, but then these forced conversions, and because the numbers are just so many this is going on every year.
Yeah, tell us a couple of stories.
Well, I think, when you hear the stories of these girls, that's tragic. And we're going to have a video report from my friend Asher John of Cross Connection. Again, this is a ministry that is on the internet telling these stories of what is going on. And it is heartbreaking. And, these girls, again, they're from Christian families. In the case of the one young lady that we're going to meet in the report, she has been since returned to her family. But as you can imagine, she's been traumatized.
12-year-old Farah Shaheen, a Pakistani Christian, endured a brutal nightmare after being abducted by 3 Muslim men in Faisalabad in Pakistan's Punjab province. She was forcibly converted to Islam and married to one of her captors, who was 45 years old. Farah was chained up, worked as a slave, and brutally abused during her 5 months in captivity.
The parents kept visiting the courts, and finally, the police recovered the girl from the abductor's custody, and she was in shackles. She was locked up in chains, and she was being raped repeatedly by the man and his friends. The police recovered her in fetters. When they produced her in court, the girl's ankles, they were injured. And all the court did was send the girl with her parents. Neither the police nor the court took notice of the fact that that girl had been kept as a slave.
Farah's childhood has been stolen from her, and she's been left traumatized, but is grateful to be back with her family and has a long road of healing ahead. Farah's story, unfortunately, is common. According to a report from Forbes magazine, at least 1,000 girls and young women from religious minorities are forcibly converted and married annually in Pakistan, and the numbers are likely much higher since many cases go unreported. The perpetrators often go unpunished for their crimes against these girls.
In most of the cases, parents of these girls are very poor people, with both parents work. The mother usually works as a housemaid or domestic help. The father is a daily wager. They both go out to work, which leaves the girl vulnerable to the perpetrators, who in most of the cases are from their own neighborhoods.
Sitara Arif, a 15-year-old Christian girl, was kidnapped last December in Faisalabad, abducted by the husband of her employer. She was forcibly converted to Islam and then married to her 60-year-old captor. It took almost 2 months for police to finally register the case, despite repeated pleas from the girl's family. Sitara's family is now being intimidated to drop the case. In another incident covered by Cross Connection, the media platform led by Asher John, 14-year-old Manor Ashraf was taken by her 45-year-old neighbor, who is a married father of two, and 3 other men at a local store in Lahore. 3 days later, Manor's parents were told their daughter had converted to Islam and married her kidnapper. When the case went before the courts, Manor, likely pressured into the marriage and perhaps even threatened, claimed that she was 19 and a fraudulent marriage certificate was produced.
She goes and tells the court, the High Court, that I am 19 years old, whereas the parents present their own marriage certificate, under which the parents' marriage wasn't even 19. It was they were married for only 17 years. And they kept pleading, and they showed the girl's official birth certificates, her baptism certificates, her school certificates. Yet the court refused to listen. And they said, no, the girl is saying she is 19 and she's going to go with her husband.
Manor's family has been left devastated. For Asher John, a father of 2 daughters and living in Pakistan, this issue is very personal.
My eldest daughter is going to turn 13. My youngest is 7. And trust me, I fear for them. And I fear for all children. A child is a child, regardless of who they are. A child is a child. It is child rape in the guise of forced conversions.
Asher and his team will continue to report on these tragic stories of these girls being taken, even when the authorities often ignore the pleas from the families.
It matters because in times like these, who's going to keep track? Who's going to keep track of all those children who are losing their childhood? We cannot even imagine the girls I have interviewed. It is heart-wrenching. It is so difficult to even question them.
Thank you for sharing this story with us. My next question to you, how do churches and Christians in Pakistan respond to persecution and to the forced marriages?
Distress, no question. As you saw in that report, these young girls, their childhood has been stolen, and it affects the family. And a part of the strategy, I think the overall strategy of the enemy, as he uses religion and all these other things to try to demoralize the church. I mean, when these things happen, it affects your faith. Now, yeah, we have strong faith in Jesus, and I've seen that, but also a lot of fear comes in. They've had to leave their communities as an example. So churches have lost valuable members of their churches. And it affects just the psychology, the psyche of the church in Pakistan. They're always living under some kind of fear. I mean, we've heard of, explosions in churches by these suicide bombers and, parking cars in front of a church and blowing it up. And, we've heard many of those stories. And because it's, especially the bunch of evangelicals, less than 1% are evangelical Christians, they're such a small minority. So when you have, Ramadan and the Muslim celebrations, they are definitely a minority. And in some ways, they better understand, when the Bible talks about, the Apostle Peter writing that we are strangers and aliens here. All of us, and Paul writing to the Philippian church, our true citizenship is in heaven. And you have to understand that. But still, they're human beings. And, I've been in and preached in Pakistani churches where you have security people out there, police or military, guarding the churches with guns, trying to make sure that nobody's going to...
Even we had some friends as well that they go to Pakistani churches. Actually, they say that the government told them not to accept any Muslim background believers.
Right.
Like if you're a Catholic, if you're a Church of Pakistan, like generationally Christian, you can go there. But they are not allowed to open the door for Muslim background believers. And actually Pakistan has the lowest conversion among the Muslims to Christianity. Why is that?
Well, I think there's a lot of fear, and as you mentioned, they're told not to come, to the church. I actually had a friend of mine. He's from a Middle Eastern country, and when he left Syria into Lebanon, and he tried to find a pastor, and They knew who his father was back, he was a sheikh back in Syria, and none of the pastors wanted to talk to him or wouldn't meet with him, wouldn't give him a Bible because he came from a Muslim background. So there's the intimidation. Now I know, and I'm not going to mention the places where I was or the churches that I were in, but I was told that there were Muslim background believers in the service. They would come in, they would sit at the back, and they would have, time of the worship. They would hear the message, and then near the end of the service, they would leave. Some of them won't come, but they will meet in secret with other believers. So that intimidation definitely is out there, and it's very clear to Muslims who are thinking about converting, and then they hear about Muslims that have made a decision to follow Jesus, and now they're in prison, or they could have been killed, or their families being threatened, or they've had their homes destroyed, or their business has been destroyed. So there's that intimidation, and that's one of the reasons, at least statistically, that we know about. The true numbers on conversions to Jesus, only the Lord knows. It's like I was talking to John Weaver. I don't know if you know him,
yes,
but
yes.
Good brother. And I remember saying, well, how many Christians are in Afghanistan? And he said, not enough. We don't know of many of these countries.
Only God knows.
Only
yes.
God knows, and he's the one that's keeping track of all this.
Yes.
And so I would say statistically, yes, Pakistan, it's a difficult place, but I have many Facebook friends and they have ministries there, and I know that there's not everything that's on Facebook is legitimate. And as you're watching today and listening to this program, just be wary. There are some wonderful ministries that are working in Pakistan. I have a friend of mine, Peter Paul, and his wife Jemima in Mississauga, Ontario. They're from Pakistan, and they're doing amazing work there. And I've asked them, I get all these requests for help and come and do a big crusade, big meetings and all this. And he said, just be careful. And that's what I would say to anybody. So when you talk about, why is that? It's the intimidation factor,
yes.
But the Holy Spirit is moving, and there still are people that are having dreams and visions, hearing radio broadcasts. Somebody got them a Bible in Urdu, or somebody like me that wrote a book. It's being distributed, and people are hearing about the gospel.
Yeah. Yes, we should say that there are Bible colleges in Pakistan.
Sure. Yes.
There are also Bible Association of Pakistan that they distribute. They translated Bible into the Urdu and some other languages, Pashto as well, and they distribute Bible all across Pakistan. Many mission agencies, they are active in Pakistan. We thank God for that. You mentioned that you wrote a book.
Yeah, it's called Closer to the Fire. So, it was written in English, and then I was teaching the Theology of Persecution Discipleship course at a Bible college, wonderful Bible college in Pakistan. Many of the students had come from Muslim backgrounds, some had come from generational Christian backgrounds, and some are new converts, and different things like that. And so when I was going over there to teach, and so what reading material, I said, well, I have a book. It's called Closer to the Fire, and up until that point, 10 or 15 years, I've been traveling to the persecuted church, and by the encouragement of my wife, so you need to get this written down, because everything was on video, and I had written articles on that, and so we came up with the concept of Closer to the Fire. Closer you are to Jesus, the closer you are to the fire, and these are stories of persecuted Christians around the world, from all nations, different nations, and then it was some of the lessons that I was learning, and I'm actually working on another book similar to that, but incorporating some of my personal testimony and the impact it's had on me personally, and how Christians in Canada, we can learn. So this was translated into the Urdu language, and so this was the reading material. And one of the things that we really see is that
I can read it.
Yeah, you can read it. Yes.
Qarib, Closer to the Fire.
There you go. Yeah. And the only story that's not in that book, that's in the English or the Finnish version of it, is Pakistan, just for security reasons. But it's been distributed all over the country. Since then, we printed thousands of copies. One of the stories that I actually found out when I was teaching at this Bible school in Pakistan, I was staying with the administrator of the school, and he said, "Brother Greg, I want to tell you this story. There's this couple, and they're in a very remote area of Pakistan. They're the only Christians, as far as they know, in their village. They're school teachers, and they're being pressured to convert to Islam." And it wasn't like, deny Jesus, become a Muslim, or we'll kill you. It was, we like you, our children like you, you're doing a wonderful job, but you're not Muslim. And if you convert to Islam, we'll give you a house and we'll give you these material things. And he said, this man, he just said, you know what, it's just taking its toll on me. I think I'm going to convert to Islam. And so one of the regional directors was in that area, and he went to this couple who were, talking about, converting to Islam. And he said, okay, before you do that, read this book. And this brother, who actually was talking about leaving Jesus and becoming a Muslim, tears streaming down his face. He didn't want to deny the Lord, but he just felt this pressure. Because, we're all humans.
Yes.
And I've met people that have converted back to Islam and then come back to Jesus.
Yeah.
Peter in the Bible, right? 3 times he denied Jesus. He forgives, he loves. We don't want to deny the Lord, but pressure comes. Anyway, so this brother read this book. He started in the evening and he read it all night. And then his wife came out in the morning, and he was kind of now sleeping, and woke him up, and the first thing he says was, I will not deny Jesus, because if they can do it, I can do it. And when I was told that story, I started to cry, because putting a book together and editing and everything, it's a long process. And I thought if it was just for that one brother and that sister in Christ, that they said, no, we're going to hold on to our faith in Jesus. And I never did hear what was the result of that, but they had made that decision. So it's important for believers, whether it's in Pakistan or Afghanistan or even North Korea, all these places where it's difficult to follow Christ, is they need to know that others are also paying a price to follow Jesus.
Yes. Okay, how follower of Jesus in Canada or North America, they can help support Christians in Pakistan?
Well, I think one of the first things is to hear the stories, the current stories. This young man that I was actually this comes from our website, and we also have what's called the Persecution and Prayer Alert. So 3 or 4 stories will come out each week from around the world, whether it's Nigeria or India or Pakistan. Those are countries that we hear a lot about, to sign up for that. And then as you like for me, my daily devotional time, as I have a program to read through the Bible every year, is to take some of these stories, either doing it during your devotional time or during the day, or have it on your phone or whatever. And, so you read about a believer by the name of No Man Masih, who's been accused of blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad, supposedly distributing pictures of Muhammad. It's likely not true, but we need to hear those stories. So it starts really with prayer, and to learn about Pakistan and to understand, as you're talking about these sweet people that have the worst of the worst jobs. They can barely make a living to feed their family. And as a result of that, their children, especially their daughters, are left vulnerable to those that would try to take advantage of them. So to find out what's going on, but also hearing the stories of how God is working in Pakistan in the midst of, very, very difficult situation. And then as the Holy Spirit gets a hold of our heart, what can I do? Maybe it is to go to Pakistan, or supporting a ministry like the Voice of the Martyrs or Open Doors. Again, be careful when people are on Facebook. But, as the Lord leads, you might lead you into a friendship with somebody there to pray with them and to help them. So there's many ways. Getting the Bible in the Urdu language, training pastors, that's a big part of it. And then the trauma counseling for these young ladies. It's a lot of things, but it does start with prayer. And as the Holy Spirit gets a hold of our hearts, then we can act.
Yes. Thank you, Greg, for sharing with us today. Let's all conclude this program with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thy is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Square One World Media is an international team with a vision of spreading the life-changing message of Jesus Christ through media. We encourage, equip, and empower passionate Christian storytellers to share the gospel message. We spread the gospel using television, radio, podcasts, social media, and print publications. Since our first English radio program aired in 1947, we have continued to expand and now produce Christian media in a variety of formats, genres, and languages. Want to know how you can help? Go to squareoneworldmedia.com, see the projects that we're working on, and how you can get involved.